Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Josh Peck here with another update. So this is something that I've been talking about for well over a decade, and I'm going to share something with you too that I wrote in a recent book, The Final Cataclysm. It's actually a two-part series, which you can get at prophecywatchers.com right now. Link in the description below. But this, I'll read an excerpt from that a little later, but this headline, scientists issue ominous warning over mind-altering brain weapons that can control your perception, memory, and behavior. And I wonder if this could head into possible Mark of the Beast territory. Could there be some sort of hive mind, brain control kind of thing? Now, in order to get the Mark of the Beast during the tribulation, you do have to have free will because you have to willingly worship the beast. But I wonder if after you receive it, if there's a type of, mind-altering thing, something like this. So this might be a precursor to the Mark of the Beast. So it says, mind control weapons may sound like something from a dystopian science fiction film, but experts now say they are becoming a reality. Scientists have issued an ominous warning over mind-altering brain weapons that can target your perception, memory, and even behavior. In a newly published book, Dr. Michael Crowley and Professor Malcolm Dando of Bradford University argue that recent scientific advances should be a wake-up call. Professor Dando says, quote, the same knowledge that helps us treat neurological disorders could be used to disrupt cognition, induce compliance, or even in the future, turn people into unwitting agents. Nations, including the US, China, Russia, and the UK, have been researching so-called central nervous system, CNS, acting weapons since the 1950s. Now, Dr. Crowley and Professor Dando argue that modern neuroscience has become so advanced that truly terrifying mind weapons could be created. And now that since this is sort of coming out now, I wonder how long that they've had this, because obviously we've known many instances throughout the past where governments have been researching into this, and makes you wonder how successful they were, because if they were extremely successful, they wouldn't really have any incentive to tell us, right? That's something they might want to keep secret so they could keep using it, because obviously that would be not very popular to the general public. Professor Dando says, quote, we are entering an era where the brain itself could become a battlefield. The tools to manipulate the central nervous system, to sedate, confuse, or even coerce are becoming more precise, more accessible, and more attractive to states. So throughout the 50s and 60s, most of the world's major powers actively sought to develop their own mind-controlling weapons. Their goal was to create devices that could incapacitate large numbers of people through unconsciousness, hallucination, or disorientation, or sedation. Most famously, the American military developed the compound BZ, which produces a powerful sense of delirium, hallucinations, and cognitive dysfunction. The U.S. manufactured approximately 60,000 kilograms of the potent drug and used it to create a 340 kilogram or 750-pound cluster bomb. Although the bomb was intended to be used in Vietnam and BZ was tested intensively on U.S. soldiers, there's no evidence that the weapon was ever used. Yeah, but how could we really know? Meanwhile, the Chinese military has developed a narcosis gun designed to shoot syringes of incapacitating chemicals. However, Dr. Crowley and Professor Dando point out the only time that a CNS targeting weapon has ever been used in combat was by Russian security forces during the 2002 Moscow theater siege. After armed Chechen militants took 900 civilians hostage, security forces used a fentanyl-derived incapacitating chemical agent to disable the attackers. So it goes on to say, while the chemical weapon did break the siege, the gas killed 120 of the 900 hostages and had undetermined number more to face long-term health issues and premature death. However, since then, the mind-warping potential of these weapons has extended far beyond simply knocking out attackers or triggering hallucinations. The same scientific research that's helping to treat neurological disorders can also be used to build weapons which target specific brain functions. This is something that I've been talking a lot about too, especially with, Neuralink and all this stuff. Whenever this is presented to the public, it's always presented in the most humane, altruistic, just positive light possible, and they don't really address adequately the dangers. Could a brain chip be hacked? Could somebody hack a brain chip and make somebody see things or do things that they normally wouldn't see or do? I don't see why not. If it could have control over the mind, or if the mind can use the brain chip to control things on a computer, who's to say that that can't be hacked by somebody? Of course it can. Anything that can be built, anything that can be used like that can be hacked. Especially when you throw quantum computers into the mix, but that's a whole separate thing. That's why I don't trust any of this stuff. I personally would never use it, but it says that's the dual use dilemma we face, says Professor Dando. For example, scientists are investigating parts of the brain's survival circuits, which are the neural pathways that control fear, sleep, aggression, and decision making. Understanding how these circuits work is critical for treating neurological conditions, but also opens the door to weaponizing these regions of the brain. In fact, Dr. Crowley and Professor Dando are so concerned about this possibility that they are traveling to the Hague, I don't know how to pronounce that, but for a key meeting of states to argue the case for urgent action. The issue, the researchers warn, is that CNS targeting weapons currently sit within a loophole in the rules governing the use of chemical weapons. The Chemical Weapons Convention prohibits the use of harmful chemicals in war, but there is a gray area allowing the use of some chemicals in certain circumstances, such as law enforcement. That leaves a potential legal justification for the development and use of powerful mind control weapons within the current scope of the law. Professor Dando says there are dangerous regulatory gaps within and between these treaties. Unless they are closed, we fear certain states may be emboldened to exploit them in dedicated CNS and broader incapacitating agent weapons programs. We must act now to protect the integrity of science and the sanctity of the human mind. Now, this is something that I actually wrote about well over a decade ago originally, and then in my further research, I ended up including it in a book that I recently put out called The Final Cataclysm. It's actually a two-part book, and in that I talk some about this, and I'll actually read you an excerpt over here. Let me see if I could situate this in a way where you can actually see it. That text is kind of small. Let me see something here. What does that do for you? Let's see. Let's try zooming in some. Sorry about that. I'm going to read it anyway, so if you can't see it, that's okay. And you know what I'll do? I'll take this whole thing. I'll make it a PDF that you can download at dailyrenegade.com. Right under this video, there will be a link that you can download it. And I will also make it available on the official Daily Renegade podcast and blog. So it'll be here as well at joshpeck.substack.com. All the links to that are in the description below. But in this, I talk about quantum consciousness, which I believe is the next step past artificial intelligence. And quantum intelligence, artificial, once they start putting quantum computers into artificial intelligence and then advance that a step further, I believe we're going to get quantum consciousness if we're not already there in certain, certain government agencies and we just don't know about it. But now, this is the same idea, but it takes a slightly different approach that actually, if they discover this, it'll be easier. So it starts with what's called quantum brain dynamics. So I'll read this. Quantum brain dynamics, QBD, is a theory stating that there's a new quantum field responsible for consciousness. This hypothetical field is known as the cortical field. The quanta, or elementary particles of this, the most smallest particles of this field, are known as corticons. This is just an excerpt from Wikipedia about this. This cortical field is postulated to interact with quantum coherent waves generated by the biomolecules and neurons. It goes on like that. We don't need to read that whole thing. I'll make it available to you if you're interested. But basically, it just says that consciousness, and again, I've said this before, but this would not say anything about the spirit or the soul or anything. This is just the physical side of consciousness. That it might be explained by these particles called corticons that arise from what's called a cortical field. Every field has a particle, just like the gravitational field has a graviton, the electromagnetic field has a photon, the particle of light. So the idea is, if they discover corticons, that means there must be an attached field, and that field would be the cortical field, meaning you could almost think of it as a field of consciousness, but it's not in this weird new agey kind of hive mind thing. Although with the right technology, maybe it could turn into that, which is horrifying to think about. It's actually a new show about that, I guess, that's out now. But anyway, so I write, and again, the best way to really understand this, and I do put it in simple terms, but the best way to understand it is just get the books, The Final Cataclysm, at prophecywatchers.com. But it says, I say, if this turns out to be true, it would mean our personal consciousness exists by means of an interaction with a quantum field or due to an interaction with quantum particles. In fact, the theory suggests the possibility that the cortical field not only produces consciousness by means of interacting with neurons, but actually controls the neurons. Of course, this could lead to any number of follow-up questions. Is consciousness truly real if a field can control it to some extent? Could physicists learn to manipulate the cortical field, thereby manipulating consciousness as a whole? Could this pave the way for artificial intelligence and certain goals within the transhumanist movement? Due to the rules of what's called quantum field theory, it's the most accurate science we have. It's absolutely true. It's the only reason the LHC, the big particle collider at CERN, even works the way it works, and I have other videos on that. But due to the rules of quantum field theory, if the right amount of energy is applied to the cortical field, that's what they do when they smash these particles together. They're actually creating energy that reverberates out into fields that maybe we haven't discovered yet. And if it produces a particle that we haven't discovered, then we know that the field is there. That's why the Higgs boson that was discovered, the God particle, that was discovered in 2012, the particle wasn't the real discovery. The particle means that there's a Higgs field, which means our mass is an interaction with a field. That's what mass is. It's not just substance. It's an interaction with a field, which is really weird to think about. The more you interact with this field, the more mass you pick up. That's why, they say the faster you go, like the closer you reach to the speed of light, the more mass you pick up. It's because you're interacting with the Higgs field more. That's why light particles, photons, they can travel exactly at the speed of light because they don't interact with the Higgs field at all, so they don't have mass. That's how you can have something without mass that can still exist. But anyway, so due to the rules of quantum field theory, if the right amount of energy is applied to the cortical field, it should produce corticons. Conceivably, this could be done at particle accelerators like the LHC at CERN, and that leads one to wonder, if the cortical field is real, what types of applications could come from its discovery? Well, I write about some stuff, but let's skip down to the scary thing. So there's another horrifying possibility that came up in one of my interviews on the popular internet show at the time called the Hagman and Hagman Report. Early in the show, I was asked a question about the possibility of technologically implanting a new consciousness into a person. So after I had explained quantum field theory and quantum brain dynamics, I said, if the existence of the cortical field is true, it would have huge prophetic implications surrounding it. If they were able to discover corticons, they could change how you interact in the cortical field. They could change who you are. Effectively, it would kill your consciousness. It would probably kill you. They could replace your consciousness with another consciousness that they either create in a lab or is from somebody else. Talk about how easy it would be to have a one-world government if they developed something like that. That's one of many potential outcomes that could come out of things that they are doing at CERN. And then I write a little bit more, but that's basically the gist of it. So, yeah, the idea is, and again, I'm a firm believer in free will, but I've wondered if there's ever a place where free will might not exist. I think it might be once somebody receives the mark of the beast. Because the enemy wants to control people, always has, always will, until Jesus comes and cleans it all out. So that could be a component of the mark of the beast, that once you willingly give up yourself to the beast, you worship his image, and you get the mark either on your hand or your forehead, which makes me wonder, is it an implant of some kind? Maybe at that point, you lose free will. Maybe that's why you don't get saved. I think a stronger case can be made that it's part of the mark of the beast is accepting some type of angelic like immortality from the Antichrist, because he's probably a future prophetic Nephilim, part Satan, part human, literally the son of Satan, son of perdition. Ryan Pitterson has an excellent book on that called The Final Nephilim. You should check it out. So I think that's most likely the case. But I also wonder if it takes away their free will, because if you have free will, you have the ability, to at least try to repent, even if forgiveness isn't granted. But you don't see that anywhere from the people who have accepted the mark of the beast in Revelation. They all curse God. They all kind of do the same thing. And it could be nothing. It could just be that they're unrepentant. But, sometimes I wondered, have they given up their free will? And could this technology, could this mark of the beast, whatever it is, could that have something to do with them sacrificing, giving up their free will in order to receive, immortality? So I don't know, but it's interesting to think about. So, again, I write more about that in The Final Cataclysm. I also write more about the influence of the Watchers and all of that stuff in my new book, which is now available at prophecywatchers.com. Right here, Return of the Watchers, Ancient Nephilim Technology Revealed. And I believe that the technology that we're seeing now is directly influenced by fallen angels, by the Watchers. It's the same thing that happened in the Book of Enoch. What happened in the Book of Enoch? Well, let me read you a little excerpt from the back cover text description of the book. This is from Enoch 8, 1 through 3. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives, shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them. Well, that's technology, isn't it? I mean, all of our technology is based on metals of the earth. A lot of them are weapons of war, or could be used as weapons of war, just as we looked at with these mind-controlling technologies and things. So we're seeing like a repackaged version of exactly what happened during Genesis 6 and during 1 Enoch 8, 1 through 3 here. It's the same story, it just has a little more information. So I write all about that, and here's just what the book is about if you're interested. The book of 1 Enoch teaches us about a time when 200 watchers fell to the earth, procreated with women, and taught mankind things they were never supposed to know. The book of Genesis tells us this event happened during Noah's lifetime. Jesus Christ himself taught that the end times would be like the days of Noah. We now live in a time when mankind once again is tampering with things that are forbidden and completely abominable to God Almighty. Has the influence of the watchers returned once again in an attempt to corrupt and ultimately destroy humanity in these last days? Here's some things that I write about. We don't have to get into all these, but what Nephilim and hybridization experiments are happening right now, what Q-Day is, that has to do with quantum computing, why leaders and experts are so fearful of it. I talk a little bit about CERN, how people are now worshiping an artificial god through artificial intelligence. This is actually happening. And I give excerpts. There are cults that are already formed around this. There's a Chat GPT Bible. No kidding. This isn't just a one-off thing. It's got real reviews, and I put it in the book. How the development of artificial intelligence can lead to the image of the beast. I write all about that, and that has a lot to do with what we're talking about in today's video. what the unholy spirit is and how it relates to artificial intelligence. That's a big one. And then, of course, probably the most important, how to properly take personal responsibility as a watchman. We need to know this stuff. And right on the page, they have the whole table of contents there. It's four parts. It's not a very long read. I mean, it's substantial enough, but you'll be able to get through it pretty easily. And so yeah, that's at prophecywatchers.com. It is available now, and pretty soon I will be going out there to do some interviews on this. But if you do end up getting the book, could you leave me a review on Amazon? Please don't get it from Amazon. Get the book from Prophecy Watchers. But if you could leave me a review on Amazon, that really does help. Because unfortunately, some people give bad reviews for reasons that are outside of my control. Like they don't like the AI voice that does the automatic audiobook on Amazon. I don't have any control over that, but when they give it a 1 star, they're not giving Amazon a 1 star, they're giving me a 1 star. So that obviously really affects the reach of this book, and I want to get this into as many hands as possible. Because it's important. You know, I'm trying to be a watchman for the times that we're living in. All of you should too, and the best way we can do that is to get information out there. So that's what I'm trying to do on this channel, in my books, everything I do. So man, that sun is really bright. I'm in a Airbnb. We're still in an Airbnb because our house is still being fixed. Yeah, by the way, for anybody who's curious about donations, because I've been asked, yeah, our Give Send Go is still up, which is in the links below, and I also have PayPal and all that. All the donation information is in the links below if you care to support what we do and help us in our current situation. Yeah, I'm in this Airbnb, and it's like an A-frame, so there's these big windows like on the top that don't have blinds, so that is like shining right in my face now. Well, because of that, I'm gonna conclude this. Of course, I would like to know what you think. Please leave me a comment about all this. What do you think about the Mark of the Beast? What do you think it is? What do you think about these mind-altering things? Will anybody ever be able to? Here's what I really want to know: will anybody ever be able to fully take away someone else's free will? Would God allow that? And if so, under what circumstances? And if not, why? I would love to know your opinions on that, because I've kind of gone back and forth on that question too. Like, can somebody use their own free will to willingly give up their own free will? You know, it's an interesting question, and I'm curious to know what all of you have to say about that. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Click the bell to turn on all notifications. If you want that article that I'm going to put up, which is an excerpt from the books I was talking about before, which actually, why don't I just show you those while I'm here? Final Cataclysm, Volume 1 and 2. If you get this one, you get a couple free discs. You get a couple of my presentations and some other cool stuff. But that article is an excerpt from Final Cataclysm, parts 1 and 2. So yeah, all of that is available at prophecywatchers.com. This is a really cool package because it's essentially it's the same price as both books, but you get a couple extra. You get like 3 extra DVDs with it, which is awesome. So yeah, make sure you check that out at Prophecy Watchers. Support what they do, support what we do there, and yeah, I look forward to seeing what you have to say. Again, dailyrenegade.com, joshpeck.substack.com for that article. You get a little excerpt of the book so you can see if you like what you read. All right, all that being said, thank you so much, and until next time, take care and God bless.